Hello and welcome to Wild Seat. Imagine, compa, that on a piece of island that nobody knows, a mega pirate company dedicated to dirty experiments is set up. The boss, a guy named John, arrives at the lab because wham! All his attempts to manufacture a super biological weapon, like those you see in the movies with which he dreams of taking control of the world, are worth chorizo. To complicate matters, it turns out that the government starts to smell something fishy, and John finds himself in the position of having to erase all traces of his scheme. The point is that John is planted in front of his super creation, a giant snake that not even in your worst nightmares. But hey dude, it turns out that the beast doesn't even pay attention to him, as if I were a booger on the wall, and the guy decides to send his creation to the other world. The squadron of scientists starts the job to fill the monster with poisons, while outside a crew of workers is scorched to a crisp snakes with flamethrowers. But surprise, instead of killing it, the beast gets stronger, as if it had fallen into a spinach soup and lets out a roar that leaves your bones shaking. As a result of the mega roar, the other snakes awaken, and the San Quentin's quarrel breaks out, all trying to escape from the laboratory. Taking advantage of the move, those present try to burn the beast and get the hell out of there. At the same time, the snakes in a pit start biting each other, killing any human they catch in front of them. John and his goons take off while giving orders to the soldiers to silence the scientists so that there are no witnesses. After such a rampage, they begin to sense that something is amiss when one of the experimental beasts escapes. The animal begins to give out blows left and right, as if they were rag dolls and bite to death. While the super snake also begins to break free. Phew, there's a big move coming, compa. The boss manages to get out of the move and rushes out of the helicopters. His bodyguards and soldiers stay behind like cheap movie heroes trying to eliminate the creatures. The flock of soldiers move into the thick jungle to finish off the beasts, but they are so thick they don't realize that the snakes are now tougher than a rock and have taken over the place. The soldiers continue in their move to exterminate the mutant snakes, but they are dropping like flies. There are only 2 women left to defend themselves with all the critters closing in fast with a desire for a jaw-dropper. The women are forced to team up with knives when they run out of bullets, but it doesn't take long for a giant snake to arrive and fatally wound one of them. The other, seeing her companion about to become a snake's snack, rushes to stab the beast in the back. But alas, my friend, it turns out that the snake has more muscle than the Terminator and sends the woman flying. When she recovers, her partner is already in the other neighborhood, and the snake has her on a skewer. She begins to scream at the top of her lungs as the snake takes a bite out of her stomach. On the other hand, a few soldiers manage to escape and get on a boat to leave, but the snake in the water kills them quickly. A year later, there is a cruise ship sailing the ocean with people partying as if the end of the world is tomorrow, unaware that they may have won the lottery of the prophecy. To complicate matters, it turns out that a mysterious character has diverted the ship's course and sent the captain to the other side. And the people are not even aware of what is coming. At one point, a giant shadow begins to loom under the water, and people begin to notice that there are more snakes on the ship than in a snake charmers contest, and they're wiping everyone out. It turns out that the boat is being surrounded by thousands of snakes that have come out of the water, and the creatures start picking off the humans one by one. Things get tense, and everyone goes into every man for himself mode as the snakes go about their business poisoning everyone. Ty, who was on vacation with his girlfriend Marley, begins to suspect something is wrong when they hear people screaming. The gang starts running like hell, but the snakes have already crawled into every corner of the boat, so he tries to warn the people in the cafeteria of the mess that is being made. He realizes he's too late. The snakes had already signed up for the menu. He realizes that he has already run more than in his entire life with the few remaining survivors. He encounters the giant snake that has decided to follow them for the after-dinner meal. The people have only one option to run to the rooms and dodge the snake's attack. They make it to the engine room where Tahi, who seems to have read all the survival manuals, has an idea. Thais realizes that the giant snake is blind and decides to use the heat and noise of the engine room to make the creature dizzy. The cornered humans begin to pray that the snake will not notice their presence, while everyone is doing their best not to make noise and go unnoticed. The snake seems disoriented and slowly moves to another side, but just at that moment the boat stops dead and all the noises go out. And as if it were a horror movie, the alarm on a girl's watch starts to ring. The snake, alerted by the sound, detects the humans, and the snake party begins again. But Tahi, not to be outdone, attacks the snake with an axe while his girlfriend sprays him with a fire extinguisher. The creature writhes in pain, which gives the people a chance to escape, but they soon realize that the snake is tougher than a rock and is not going to give up so easily. Please, if you're enjoying the video, show it with your precious like, for you it's just a second and you help me a lot. They are in a big dilemma. Either they stay frozen like ice cream, or they become the snake's snack for the night. What a brawl. But you know what? It gets worse. Can you believe it? A guy starts bleeding from his nose worse than a nosy kid in an alley fight. Marley, smarter than the others, realizes the man is poisoned. And if they don't get help, he's going to be stiffer than a surfboard soon. So there he is, this all-fairy snout. He gets the idea to open the door to distract the snake, but Eli, his buddy, isn't about to let his friend become bait. Before they can agree, the sick guy, in a burst of heroism, runs to the door. He attracts the bug's attention and shouts at everyone to fight. From there, they have no choice but to flee. And the man closes the doors, locking the snake in and saving the rest of the group. Wow, the next plan is simple to get out of the ocean. I mean, they have to start the ship up again, but when they get to the control room, they find that the captains are already in the afterlife, so no one is running the ship. But you know what? With a little bit of cunning, they manage to start the ship's engine and get away from the area. It's not long before they realize they're headed straight for an island and get their hopes up about being rescued. But boom! Something hits the boat, brings it to a screeching halt and blacks out all the windows. They get out to see what the hell happened and find a creature taller than a building roaring with all its fury. Imagine the blabbering, everyone running like crazy to avoid being crushed by the giant critter. Hey, and what do you think they decide to do, huh? Well, they should fly out of the ship. No way. Ta and the hero of the day tells everyone to get into a lifeboat while he stays behind to entertain the beast. He gets all the way into the engine room and starts bursting all the gas lines, leaving a puddle of gasoline that looked like a skating rink. Suddenly, they all manage to get into the lifeboat and watch their comrade in a one-on-one with the monster, when the beast begins to omelet the boat and realizes that he is running out of time. So what does he do? He takes out a flare, shoots it into the sky, and wham! The flare falls and blows up the boat. The people on the boat are left with their eyes wide open, thinking that he didn't get away with it, but bam! Luckily, he manages to get out just in time, and they rush him back to the boat. The next morning, they wake up and see that they are on the island. They go ashore thinking they are safe from the snakes, but little do they know they are about to get into even more trouble. Soon the main character starts hearing a noise stranger than my cousin dancing and realizes something is wrong. He tells them all that they need to get out of there now, but all they find are weird rocks, until suddenly a tentacled creature comes out and grabs one of their own. They realize they're in a bind with the creatures eating humans like canasta tacos, and they all run for their lives. But you know what's weird? The creatures start to walk away and leave the humans alone. Tahi discovers that the creatures must be attracted to blood, since they only ate the wounded, so they manage to escape and go deeper into the forest until they find a military camp. Hey, so the survivors come across a transmitter and grab all the equipment they can with the idea of sending out distress signals. The adventure continues through the bush until they reach a very dense jungle, but there they start to feel something moving in the shadows, like when you feel like you forgot something but you don't know what. And suddenly, one of the survivors finds something out of a horror movie, a man impaled by something enormously large. It turns out that a giant spider was attacking them, picking them off like roast beef. That causes them all to hide behind trees, shooting at the monster. But its attacks are as effective as a paper umbrella. The creature skewers another survivor and starts to pick him up, but the man pulls out a grenade and it explodes in front of the spider. That gives them a chance to escape and also causes the spider to leave the scene. The survivors decide to follow and arrive at a giant laboratory. They enter the building and begin to find piles of documents about experiments with the mutant snakes. They continue the walk through a subway tunnel and, oh surprise, the light in the building still works. Finally, the survivors find a room with enough food and drink to survive the night and seek help. After eating for the first time in days, they all lie still, not realizing that one of the survivors is secretly hovering. He also wakes up and realizes that the man is missing, so he decides to look for the survivor. He darted into that subway tunnel that looked more like the stomach of a hungry monster. He went looking for this guy. The lab thief is a bad spy, while his colleague Lee, sleeping soundly with no idea of the mess his friend and Artai were getting into, appeared on the other side, in the middle of a place with so much fog that it looked like the trees were smoking, and he started to hear a noise. Imagine the sound of your grandmother snoring, but in a big way. It turns out that the giant snake, the one that made your life impossible in the ocean, was alive and kicking. And of course the beast lunges at it like someone going for the last slice of pizza, but along comes Eli shooting like crazy at the snake, trying to be the hero of the day, the monster that seems to have a special liking for you. He tries to eat it in one bite, like when you snag a pie in one sitting, but the guy manages to dodge it at the last second, leaving you at a dead end and your heart in a fist. He goes back to the guys to tell them the story, but they find a signal that came out of nowhere, like that song you like. On the radio, they try to call for help, but realize that there is no escape if the snake is still in bodyguard mode. So toy with 2 brain cells in your head. He organizes a MacGyver-type plan to take down the snake with his people. They set up traps to make the monster bleed as a kind of survival reality show. The idea is to drive the giant snake up the cliff like a bull and make it face a bunch of tentacular monsters who will do the dirty work. The next day, while they are hiding behind the trees and Tai is paying homage to his friend, a suspicious guy shows up with a knife. But Ta there, neither short nor lazy, gives him a lesson in flying without wings, sending him flying through the countryside. As it turns out, He's a doctor who worked in the lab where the mutant creatures came from. He escaped from being sent to the other neighborhood, but came back to continue his experiments. The guy thought his little monsters could be the salvation of mankind, but Tay thought he was out of his mind. While the other survivors try to play bullfighter with the giant snake and the stakes they had prepared. The monster walks into the trap and appears behind Dr. Ta and sees the critter and runs off, leaving the doctor to get a taste of his own medicine. He gives and runs like he's the last train with the snake at his heels. And then he comes up with the masterstroke. He throws bottles full of blood onto the beach and the tentacular monsters start dancing. He runs towards the cliff with the snake behind him and jumps just in time to dodge the bite of death. He manages to grab onto a tree and saves himself from falling as the monster crashes into the nest of tentacles. The bugs see the wounded snake and start attacking it as a group, leaving it lying on the ground, and together they manage to get all the blood out of it, and the snake is left screeching until it falls into the void. Sometime later, they are all waiting on the beach and see a boat approaching. They smile as they look at the sunset, knowing that they are finally going to be rescued. But the adventure doesn't end here. I wait for you in the next one. Let's go!